been successful in securing a number of externally funded projects exploring different aspects of cybersecurity. The latest projects is Partnership for Education and Research for a program for women in cybersecurity funded by British Council UK Saudi Challenge Fund program. Dr. Nawaf supervises a number of PhD students in the areas of AI, networks, and cybersecurity. So, Nawaf, continue with the session. Thank you.
Okay, hello? Yeah, okay, good, perfect. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I think from the first session you had, you were very active, and I hope we will be active in this session as well, but not as much as Shini. I think Shini, she's more into security and data protection, so I think you were very, so for me, I'm more into research. So because you all are here master student, so that's your next target or next step. You do have dissertation here, right? Afterward, you have to do your dissertation, and maybe you would like to carry on for your PhD, yeah? Okay, so we'll talk about today optimizing infrastructure placement in cybersecurity architecture. I hope you understand the title, yeah? And we'll go further into this so we can understand exactly what we mean by each term here. So is that on? Okay. Why is that working? This doesn't say you're on. Oh, okay. I was doing the way around. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the outline, or let's say the agenda, what I will be going through is the research on aviation. So we have the three steps, or let's say three topics we're gonna talk about. So first, we're gonna consider how do we implement AI for optimizing infrastructure placement in wireless mesh network, yeah? And then we're gonna go through the AI approaches. So what kind of approaches, methods we will be using for wireless mesh network. And then finally, we'll come to the basic, or to conclude, what is cybersecurity architecture in AI, okay? So, as I said, it's more involved in research. So we're gonna talk in terms of how do we start our research, the first step. So I have these are the projects that I have completed and still in the process in most of it, because as you see, technology is evolving. So every day we have something comes up in terms of technology. So we need to be up to date. We need to be in terms of advance, optimizing the technology, optimizing our research. So the project aim is to design and implement algorithm. So you all understand the words algorithm? Yes? Okay. So algorithm for improving the performance and efficiency of wireless mesh network. Now again, we're going to go through each one of this so we can understand what exactly do we mean. So we made an investigation, okay, between the data we will be collecting. So the idea is to provide a good performance of a network. So the motivation of this project was more involved in rural area, okay, third world countries. They don't have good performance and in terms of network. Yes, you see there's a lag of connection in some areas when you go from one area to another. You can see your network is lagging, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to improve or enhance the network. So the research was starting in that concept. How do we optimize the network? How do we optimize the connection, the bandwidth, and so on, the traffic we get through the network? So what did we use? We use algorithm. We develop algorithm, okay, and so can help us. So this image, can you see that? This is a city, right? And what do we have here, okay? So when we say network, connection, internet, what first thing comes into your head in terms of infrastructure? What do we need? Sorry? What do we need for, now you all are connected, right? To network, to internet. So what do you need to connect your smartphone to internet? Well, okay, that's talking about, you need modem, yeah? And, or called modem, router, gateway, ITAP, yeah? Right? Okay? So we need, this is, we call it infrastructure of wireless mesh network. Yeah? Because you all are connected wirelessly. Yeah? So what we have here, we have a city, and you can see, does that has a pointer light? Yeah, okay. No. Oh, okay, yes, okay. So let me go back, okay. So can you see here these buildings? We have buildings, houses, yeah? And on the top of each, can you see that red node? That red node represents the gateway, or we can call it internet access point, yeah? Or ITAP, okay. And then we have houses, and on the top of each house, there is router, yeah? So what happens here? So they all trying to connect to the internet, like you guys now. You want to connect to the internet. So what you do? So you have the routers. So the router on the top of each building or the house has to transit, yeah, to the nearest gateway we have here, okay? Because the gateway acts as an entrance to internet, yeah? So there's a sequence of passing your data. So you pass the data, okay, you want to transfer your data. Okay, you want to transfer your data. Let's take that node. So that node needs to transfer the data to the nearest gateway, yeah? So in that term, we want our data to be transferred to the gateway. And then can you see the connection? Where is the gateway connected with the yellow arrow? To the internet. As I said earlier, the gateway is the entrance to the internet, all right? So, so here we have far nodes and close nodes. So why did we choose, we call it wireless mesh network, okay? Wireless mesh network, it's a kind of topology, how we arrange the network connection, yeah? Do you know what's topology? Yeah? So there's different types of topology. There's a circle topology, star topology, and so on. For the wireless, we call it mesh network topology. So that means with the mesh, so the data, so let's say that data, okay, here, what if there's, let me take, okay, which data to explain for, okay, we can see there's a far nodes here, yeah? So these people here, they're going to struggle with transferring the data and getting the bandwidth. Why? Because they are far from the gateway. So we chose wireless mesh network. So first thing, we can save cost. So because instead of having many ITAPs or many gateways, we can use the wireless mesh network, okay, to help us, to assist us. So like, for example, that node can transfer their data to the gateway through these nodes, yeah? But it would be more convenient for that scenario to use the wireless mesh network. So, okay, so in terms, again, of the objectives of that project, is to minimize the cost. Yeah, so when I say minimize the cost, that means I'm going to reduce the number of the gateways, because they do cost us to deploy these or to place these gateways. So by reducing the number of these gateways, but at the same time we have to satisfy the client. So what is the point? I reduce the gateway and the access point, but the customers and the client are not happy, not satisfied, right? So how can we satisfy? As I said again, we satisfy them by using wireless mesh network. That's one of the approaches. And we have to be fair. So we have three objectives in that project. First thing, to minimize the cost. How we minimize the cost? By minimizing number of ITAPs. And then we maximize the bandwidth to make the client or the customers happy with the data. And third thing, we have to be fair. Like, for example, he requested 500 mega. You are his neighbor and you requested 1,000. So with that scenario, we have to be fair. I can't give you 1,000 and give him 200, okay? So we're going to go further into this to understand how that works. Okay, so first thing, wireless mesh network, as I said, it's a kind of topology and divided into, it's a combination of, we call it mesh client and mesh router. So these both, they make the wireless mesh network. Network topology, so we've seen earlier each nodes represent the wireless mesh network. So then when we say in wireless mesh network, there is mesh router, which is going to be deployed on the top of each houses, yeah? So we did say this is a city, and each one of these houses, they need to connect to the internet. So the first thing they need, the router. So that router, okay, will be deployed on the house, or you all have routers at home, otherwise you won't be able to connect, right? Okay, so access point, the red one we had here, okay, that's the gateway, or we call the access point. That's the entrance or the door to the connected to the internet. Okay, so far we understand the infrastructure now, yeah, and then we carry on. So again, we are designing this project or this wireless mesh network optimization by implying three objectives, and the main one is to minimize the number of ITAPs required, while we are at the same time we maximizing the bandwidth to the client, to the customer. We can consider anything, okay? So I will consider here to each house, okay? So by doing that, we need to develop algorithms, okay? We employed many algorithms. We started with something called CPLEX, okay? CPLEX is a kind of, we call it, it's kind of, it's sort of how we can consider if that would be working for big data or small data. So CPLEX, when we used it to work on that project, it was working just on a small data, so that was the first step of investigation. And then, so before I go further with the algorithms, we need to understand how did we start. So now, any project you do as a researcher, what do you need? she spoke about the data earlier, right? But she spoke about the data in terms of how to protect this data. Now I'm going to talk about how did I collect this data before I secure this data. So in terms of collecting the data, there are two types of data. We call it primary data and secondary data. With the primary data, that's something you create. So if you were an organization, I'm trying to make it easier for you to understand, to reflect it back to the earlier session. So in terms of organization, you want to collect data. The data you collected from your company. This is primary data you collected. Okay. Secondary data is something that you will find people have already collected before you, and they are being shared with others, okay? So what we have here, I generated this data myself. And we're gonna think, how did you generate this data? So we're talking about physical location. So the first thing we had here, we called a grid area. You know that image here we had, okay? This is a grid area, X and Y, yeah, area in meters. So the smallest data I collected was about 100 times 100 distance. So that's not very big data. This is very small. So we're talking about a couple of houses, a couple of buildings will be involved. So always when you start your research to investigate, you start with a small data. And then you carry on, you increase your data, you want to see what is the result going to be like, okay? And then you start comparing what is the most suitable algorithm will be for each data. So when I said earlier we started with CPLEX, we started CPLEX with a small data, few nodes. It works very well, but with the big data, it doesn't work well. So we improve using different algorithms. So coming back here, okay, 100 meters, and then I increased it to 500, 700, and then 1,000 time 1,000. So now we're talking about big city. Okay, when I say the grid area, as I said, it's X and Y. So this is parameters, right? So now, okay, I've selected the area. So what's next in this data? What do I need? Okay, because we did say first, the first title, to optimize what? Infrastructure placement, right? So what do I need here? I need ITAPs or gateways, right? So we're talking about nodes, we're talking about capacity. So I need to understand the capacity. What is the capacity for each house and the capacity for each ITAP, yeah? Okay, so we have connections between these. So I need to understand the wireless connection. Remember that previous image of the city. So when I said data A will transfer to node B, and node B will transfer to the ITAPs, right? So what is the connection? We call it wireless connection. So it could be 100 meters, it could be 50 meters. So this is the wireless connection. I can transfer data from A to B. That's a very important parameters as well. So that's how we generated the data. First, we subject and we select the parameters. We all agree with the capacity, and then the area, X and Y, and then wireless, and so on. I'm not gonna confuse you more, because I just need you to understand the basic and the concept how we build this data. And then to generate the data set with different parameters, I've used Python language, okay? Because here we are going to develop a program, yeah? We write a script. Are you all here good in programming? Yeah, what do you use? Python? Yeah, most of you? Okay, perfect. So Python is a good. Why do we think it's good? Because it has a library. It's any language you can use as long as you understand the concept of programming. But I always recommend and I suggest my students to use Python, because it has an open library and can support a lot. Okay, we come to now to the placement. So this is the issue I want you to understand. Where we place the ITAP or the gateway is the problem. So what is the point if I put a gateway here and there are no clients, and in the other room I have, let's say, 50 students, or in that particular area 50 houses, and I have 1 or 2 gateway. So that doesn't work. So that we come to the main problem here is, where do we place this device, or where do we place the infrastructure of the network? All right. So we come up with a novel contribution. We call it move operators. Okay. We'll understand what does the move operator mean. Again, going back from the first example, node A will transfer the data to B, so B can transfer to the gateway. So what is this? This is a move operator, moving the data from one node to another. Okay, we call it move operator. We have different move operators. So the novel contribution of this work was the the move operators. Okay, we used different move operators, and that was the proposed of this research. Okay, what's this? So here I showed you the 2 involved nodes. We have the node for the house, and we have node for the ITAPs, or we can call it gateway, whatever you like. All right. So to start generating the data, or to make a network graph, we call it a graph edge network. We use something called a Fulkerson network. Okay, so that it's typed to show us how we can make the network, or how to generate the network. So as you can see, the house node, we have in and out. So you might think, why do we have in and out? So now when you transfer data, at the same time you're going to receive data. Yeah. So what we need in and out path for the data to be transferred. So, and we call it capacity. So each link or transaction need capacity. How much data will hold, how much data will transfer, and how much data will receive. Okay, so the same thing goes with the ITAPs. So here we call it a graph edge network. Okay, and now it's more clear to you. Yeah. So each small box represents a node. So I represented the blue is the node for the ITAP gateway. Okay. So you can see this graph here. We call it a graph edge network. As I said earlier, to generate the data, we need to understand what are the parameters will be used. Okay, so here I have a circle dotted. So that means here, these 2 data, they are within the wireless connection. So that means they can share data, they can send data. These 2 nodes, they can transfer data. So in other words, that node A will relay the transmission to B, and B will transfer to the ITAP. So in that case, what did we do? We reduced the number of ITAPs. So instead of having 1 gateway to each house, we can put these two houses in the same wireless connection, so they can support or help, rely on each other to transmit the data. So in that case, what did we do here in that example? What did we do? We minimize the cost, right? Because we are minimizing the number of ITAPs to be deployed. Okay? So as I said, this is the source of the data transferred, and that's the sink. Where do we transfer it? Again, so that we call it a graph edge network. Okay? So that was the smallest size of, or let's say a small size of data. To give an example, so I use Cplex here, okay? So carry on with the next. Here we have, I did say earlier, the most novel work contribution here was the move operator, right? Because this is kind of method, approaches will be used for the novel. So I have something called a swap move, I have reallocate move, I have delete, add, and so on. So let's understand how does this work. So as you can see here, all right, Y represent a site which holds number of ITAPs or gateways, okay? So I assumed here I have Y1, that site holds 2 ITAPs, and that site holds a 3, 1, and so on. Then I realized if I involve the swap move, and then I thought, okay, in that area, I didn't have a lot of requirement for the transmission, so this is a waste, having a 3 here, and here I have 1, and there's higher demand on Y3. So when there's a high demand, what does that mean? That means we need more gateways, ITAPs. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. So this is the swap. Reallocate is different. It's like not a swapping. So what I did here, I just flipped. In Y2, I thought there's no use. I'm wasting all the ITAPs, so I'll put 1 enough. In Y3, I swapped it. I provided with the 3. I just changed the places. With the reallocate, now I will take 1 ITAP from this group and I'll give it to these people, or maybe the opposite. It depends on the demand and the requirement. Then delete, okay, I will delete. Add, I will add, and so on. Okay, so we come now with the approaches I use for this project. So what are the approaches? So first thing, we used weighted sum approach. I'm sure, are you familiar with that now? Okay, so this is kind of approaches that we use in terms of a research. Weighted sum is like normalization. So we use it for multi-objective functions. So we had 3 objectives. We said minimize the ITAPs and then maximize the bandwidth or to satisfy the customers. And third thing was to be fair. So these 3, it's not a single objective we can solve it. Because it's more objectives here, we have to combine them together. So we use the word we use the approach, weighted sum, which is normalizing. Normalizing is a kind of approach we use to combine all these objectives into one objective. And then we use the evolutionary algorithm, which is it's very sophisticated algorithms like the non-dominated genetics algorithm. I'm sure none of you heard of that because it's early stage. Have you heard of that? Non-genetics algorithm? Yeah? I'm sure you did. Yeah, so I use the non-dominated genetics algorithm, so I'll talk about it further. So these are the 2 approaches we use. So first, simply, okay, we got a good result for normalization, but it's not the standard we expected. Yeah, we need something more efficient. So apparently what we did here, provide a flexible and low-cost technology. As I said, the motivation of this project to give better service for third world countries and for the rural area in terms of the network. Yeah? And then we looked into the effective ITAP deployment. Where do we deploy? This is very important, where you place. Where do you put your ITAP? So I can make it simpler for you at home. When you put your modem in that corner and you see there is still lagging in the internet, right? That means there is something obstructing the transmission. So you will move it to a different place, and then you see the connection, it's improved, right? So placement and deploying of these ITABs or nodes is very important before we do anything further. Okay, so the previous move operators, the 4 we use them for the ITABs, yeah? I can move around, I can play around with it, but when I come to the houses, I can't move my house from that area to another, right? Because this is a fixed node. You can't move it. You can't move the house. So what we did, we used something called aggressive move, we called it. Why did we call it aggressive move? So that in terms of allocation of the bandwidth, I would give you 50, I would give her 100, because that's the requirement, depending on the requirement. So here we called aggressive move operator. So you can see depends again on the allocation. So we started with 0.1, I increase the requirement. So she requested 100, I will provide her, because she's not really in a use of the internet, I can see that, and we will provide her with 0.1. Or maybe if she needs that bandwidth, we can provide her with 0.9 or 1 or whatever, okay? So this is the standard. So that, can you see these numbers? These comes under the normalization, the weighted sum approach I just explained earlier. And so on. So you can see here, I just want to show you on this graph, here we have unserved demand, so that means how many has been served houses. And here we have the number of ITABs. So apparently here I have 800 houses, oh sorry, and yeah, we can call it houses. And here we have 10 taps, yeah? So can you see how much do they need? They need 0.1. So can you see the slope here? All right, so with the 10 houses, 100 houses, they need 50. Okay, so can you see this? The slope, so it's been in terms of the allocating, how much I allocate these houses with the bandwidth. Okay, so what am I doing here? Spreading the solution, and then non-dominated set solution provided to be compared, and then to differentiate the solution between the bandwidth allocated. Was it high, low? So it depends on the requirement again. Okay, so the result came out after all this investigation, all this experiment. We've done many experiments. As I said, I start with small data, then medium, then big data. A plus is not just we're talking about the size, we're talking about the parameters itself, increasing the capacity, reducing it, the wireless connection. We change the value of each one of these. So we come up with a result that combining these 4 move operators, yeah, it gave a good result. And instead of using just the swap or just the reallocate, I decided to use all of them together and see what is the requirement for each node. And that was, as I said, I've used the Python to write that program. So the bandwidth allocation is applied to the houses, yes, with the allocation, or we call it aggressive move operator. But the other 4 move operators, they were used for the ITABs. As I said, we can't move the houses from one area to another, yeah? Okay, so this is the result. Okay, now we come to the algorithms, yeah? We use the greedy algorithms, if you heard of it, from its name, greedy. You know what's greedy? Yeah, this person is very greedy. So there is algorithm we call it greedy, okay? It's a greedy, see it's in terms of how to deploy or how to use the bandwidth. It wasn't very well on a big data. It works very well on a small data. And then we increase the data. We use simulation. We used hill climbing algorithm. So each one of these algorithms, they work differently. Yeah. So can you see here all the experiments? So each one of these experiments, they have number of ITAPs, average runtime. So what we realized with the hill climbing, I compared both of these algorithms. So I thought, okay, hill climbing is doing a good job, yeah? But at the same time, you can see here that it's fast, it can do a good job, but not good at simulating annealing. Simulated annealing, they work differently. They take more time, longer time. If I don't concern the time, I don't care about the time, okay, I would use simulating annealing, but time is important. You all don't have patience in terms of bandwidth, in terms of connection, right? So we thought, okay, so we need to think of another algorithm to be implemented. So before I go further, so these algorithms, where do they come from? What is the concept of it, of the algorithms? The concept of the algorithms is to mimic something from nature, right? So when I say hill climbing, from the word, in how you climb on the hill. So the same thing that is being creating an algorithm match or mimics the nature of hill climbing. When you climb a mountain, yeah? Okay, you would go to the shortest path, right? So it's the same thing with the hill climbing. Simulated annealing, when you have metal, and when you melt that metal, you want to change it from metal to different content, yeah? So each one of them works differently. So when you melt them, it takes time, right? But when you climb the hill, it doesn't take time. You do it, all right. So as I said, they work differently. Okay, now we come to the result after using these two algorithms. So we said again, we have three objectives, and these three objectives, we use for them the weighted sum as to have them as a single objective, and then we come up with an idea. So we use the aggressive move operator, and it did a good job as well for us. And then we thought, okay, we can improve this. We're still not happy with the result we received. So we moved to more sophisticated algorithm, or we can call it meta-heuristic algorithms. So what we used first was heuristic algorithm, and then we move on to more sophisticated. Again, genetics algorithm. You all understand what's genetic? Like mother, father, and then babies. So that's the same thing, genetics algorithm, yeah? They will have the same concept of genetics algorithm. We will have something like a crossover, father, mother, crossover, and then we'll use what comes, babies, yeah? Same thing here with the algorithms. Genetics algorithm will have the same concept of nature. So with the genetics algorithm, again, there are different type of a crossover. We have uniform, we have arithmetic. So we imply here math, okay, calculation, formulation. So apparently what we did here, we used arithmetic crossover. So using mathematical equations. So these operators, they worked for the non-dominated genetics algorithm. That's the following step. Before I move to the second one, so are we okay so far? Genetics algorithm is the most sophisticated algorithm, and we employed it for our data, and it showed us a great job. So we are happy to this amount. Okay, we come up with a hybrid crossover. As I said, we implemented different type of crossover and different type of mutation, all right, to change the gene. Okay, I'm not going to go through this very detailed. I think this is enough. Okay, so we move on now to the cybersecurity architecture and AI. Yeah? Okay, you all understand AI? Yeah, I think from the conference we had for the last 2 days, we had enough. Even if you don't understand AI, you should have now memorized it. Okay? So it mimics the human cognitive function. And that's what we've seen in the algorithms. By the way, these algorithms are in the counter of AI, right? Yes? You all agree? You agree with me? The algorithms I just defined earlier, they all come under AI because they are using the concept of mimic the nature, right? So let's go move on. We come to the security now. Okay. In terms of security, you all cybersecurity student. So from your knowledge and information, what do you think the most influence on cybersecurity? This is a simple question. It's not very research, all right? So you should all have an answer. And you have the answer in front of you. Human, we have a very big impact on security. Tremendous. Yeah? So we as an end user, we can destroy security or we can improve security. And that depends on the situation, okay, how we deal. So again, we have the technology, the evolving of the technology you see now. If we go back 10 years, we are not as we are now. You see now with the smartphones, IoT, big data, and so on. So technology is evolving, so that means we need more security to be implied. Then we have law and regulations. Like earlier, you went through all the regulations, standards, yeah? This is also has influence and impact on the security. Move on. Okay, so as I said, it has, as a human, it has a tremendous impact on the security. If we are end users, even in terms of, I've split it here in two, end user and hackers. Hackers are human as well, yeah? Right? They are human hackers, or we can call them criminal attacker, yeah? So hackers, they come under different hats. We can have good hackers and we can have bad ones, yeah? The white hat we call it ethical hackers. As organizations, they need hackers. Good organization, they employ hackers. White hat hackers, why? They need to employ them. And that type of security, because they need to understand, can anybody hack their system? So they employ a white hat hackers, okay, to discover the vulnerabilities. So if there's a vulnerability, the company, they should, in advance or early stage, they fix this vulnerability. So anyway, so in terms of going back to the human behavior. So as a human, every day we are in different mood, and especially we've been working on laptops for a long time. You as a student, most of the work you use your laptop, yeah, or smartphone. So sometimes you can click on a link and you're not in a mood, or you are not happy, and you can take an action quickly, and that comes under we need to be or let's say we need to understand the behavior of a human when using this technology. Awareness is most important. We all, as a human, as long as we are using technology, we need to be aware. Awareness of privacy and security. So this comes, that's why we say human have a big impact, because we need to have awareness so we can not cause any data breaches, or we cannot cause a bad reputation to the organization, and so on. We need to understand the threats of cyber criminal attack. We need to understand how the hackers think. right? During COVID-19, the scale of the criminal attack went up. Why? Because everybody was using the online, and most of the human, it was a new technology for them. They not used to do their work from home. They used to go to their office and they do it physically, right? But now, during COVID-19, now everything has to be changed. So what happens here? The criminal attacker, or we can call the hackers, they exploit this incident, or they exploit this time to hack the system or to attack the system. So there was a high data breach on that period of time because they didn't have awareness. Okay, people did not have an awareness. So hackers, as I said, they rise the malware attack, the data breaches, also social media hacking. You all have social media, right? Okay. I'm sure you all post your personal, I wouldn't say personal data, but I would say events, or maybe you go in there and you post your ticket, yeah? You post things, maybe you think, okay, I'm gonna post it. Some people, they do it to show off, yeah? Some people, they do it, okay, I wanna post to my friends and see where am I going, yeah? But it's not right to post everything, because we have something we call open source intelligence. So there's a specific people, and there's also a tools that can be used to grab a data that you post on social media, yeah, to be used. So like, for example, I posted, this is a real scenario, all right? I always like to engage my student with real scenario so they can understand what's going on behind. So I published a book, and I published a book, okay? And I was the editor. Or I published a journal, and I was in a high rank publication. And then these people behind the screen, or we can call them the hackers, they were using the open source intelligence. They were using my data, which I posted, and then they have the email, they know where I'm working, blah, blah, blah. And then they will send me an email, okay, and saying, okay, we are happy of the standard of your research, blah, blah, blah. We are happy to invite you to be a keynote speaker, or to be editor for our journal, and please click on that link. Yeah? Oh, wow. That's, if I see IEEE or other types of high standard publication journals, and if I don't have this awareness, I will click on it, right? Because you will be overwhelmed. Yes, this is really good, and I'm going to click on that link. But do you know what's this link? That's usually, we use it for phishing emails, we call it. Yeah? So that's what we see. Most of the hackers, they use phishing email to track people. So again, I'm trying to link it with the open source. So don't post everything. Not always is the right to post everything. Yeah, we move on. Am I taking too long? Am I okay? Yeah, okay. So now we come how we identify cyber threat. So cyber threat is very crucial, so very significant. So we have to consider it and take it serious. So in terms of this, we need to employ a sequence of approaches to protect us. So we finished the first part of the research when we said the placement problem. Now we need to consider the security of placing these nodes. How do I secure them? Yeah. So again, we use the meter heuristic. So we need to mitigate the risk. So we use this meter heuristic algorithm to stimulate a human brain, yeah, and to implement AI to assist the neural network. Again, with the AI, we are making a prediction, and sometimes 90% of this prediction is right, and It could be 10% or less or more of that prediction doesn't work. But we make a prediction in advance to mitigate the risk, okay? So the mitigation, so we come now to enhance the security. I'm still with the wireless mesh network because this is the main project, yeah? So there's phase one, we completed the placement phase one. Now phase two is to consider the security of this wireless network. So determining the best placement of IoT nodes. Now we involved IoT nodes. So you all understand IoT, yeah? Do we understand IoT? Yeah? Yes, okay, good, good. Okay, so we need, again, when we place these IoT nodes, we need to consider the security of these nodes. So to prevent a common attack using machine learning, AI, algorithms, and so on. So the aim of this research is to provide solution, and the solution is, again, applying meter-heuristic algorithm to detect a foreign node. So we did say the security is very important, and we need to stop this risk, or to reduce the risk, mitigate the risk by employing this technique. So in terms of the objectives, again, we're going to design and implement algorithms. And that algorithms is for improving the performance and efficiency of wireless mesh network. That was phase one. We are happy with the result. And now we need to determine the best placement in terms of the physical nodes, but how we're going to secure these nodes, how we're going to consider the security attack to prevent it. Okay, so the overview here, again, is just going through the, we recorded using software. We use the software to detect the node. So are you all aware of intrusion detection system? Intrusion prevention system? Yeah? Okay, so these are softwares, applications can be used to detect if there is any foreign attack, okay, to be used. So we have models. At the first phase, we had a model we created, we call it it was not involved in any obstacles or interference. So we call data link model, all right? But for the second phase, we're going to use different model. We call it general model, because with that model, we need to consider any interference, any foreign attack. So, so we can reduce the risk of the attack. Okay, so we come to a very important point. I discussed this, the contribution. So if you ever think of research project, so you need to have an aim, objective, and then the most important that you're going to target on is the contribution. What's your contribution? So at the end of the day, if I'm talking now, I've been talking for 1 hour, and now you're going to say, okay, what has she done? What's her contribution? Okay, I'm going to ask you, just talking about the phase one, from what I explained, what do you think was the contribution in the first phase? You tell me. PhD student, were you following? Okay, what was the contribution? There were, by the way, phase one had 6 contributions. Give me one of them. What? Yes, the face. Yeah. Remember I said the placement, we had a problem of where we place the nodes. Yeah? So one of the most important contribution in that project is we said we want to improve and optimize the efficiency of the bandwidth, right? So when I implied, when I implied the move operators and I got a good result, isn't this a contribution? Okay? So when I generated a data, I had no data. I generated the data. I built the data. Isn't this a contribution? Like writing an algorithm, scripts, and having different parameters. Okay? So this is a contribution. Okay. Then when we use the aggressive move operator by allocating bandwidth, this is, again, is a contribution. So there are 6 contributions in phase 1. So coming up to the finalize this, then I add phase 2 in terms of the security. So what we did here, the main contribution is to study for the second phase how we minimize the foreign attack. Yeah, I did explain in advance how the attackers, they take advantage of the situation. If there's no security or if there's an incident, they take advantage of this. So what we're doing here is to minimize the risk of foreign nodes interfering with the network that we optimize at the first phase in terms of the base placement of these physical nodes. When I say physical nodes or infrastructure, I meant the placement of the gateways, okay? So not the placement of the house. Houses don't move, stays there, okay? We just provide it with allocation of bandwidth differently. Okay, to the conclusion now. Okay, the first phase is minimizing infrastructure placement, which we did. We minimized the cost, is another contribution. Like we reduced the number of ITAPs, so the company would be happy, yeah, to reduce. Instead of, okay, I will provide you with internet with 100 bandwidth or 1,000 or whatever, depends on the requirement, and then it's going to cost you 1,000. Other companies say, okay, we're going to do this, but it's going to cost you 1,500. The prices is not real. I'm just trying to give an example. Okay, so the people who used the A, they've used my approaches, let's say. Okay, they used the ITAP placement in that model, which we call it the ideal link model, and it reduced the prices. It makes the customer happy because it increased the bandwidth, and also fairness. Fairness is very important as well at the same time. So that was the first phase. The second phase, when we considered the cybersecurity architecture and AI, again, we implied these sophisticated algorithms. We minimize the risk, and which is very important. And then we detected the foreign node, and we stop it by using the softwares, and as I explained that. Also, best placement in the network. So we can't, let's say, they make each other's, these two phase project, because phase 1, and then we carry on with phase 2, but we just change the aim, or let's say the requirement of the phase. And then we use general model. So what is the difference between these two models? The first model does not include, what we call it, did not include the interference. So now in any city, you find the trees, you find other buildings. So these make obstacle of the transmission of the bandwidth. So in the first phase, we did not use that because we were concentrating just on the placement. But in the second phase, we use the general model, which does involve and include the interference. So if there is a tree, it will make an obstacle and make an interference in the transmission. So that's me. Yes, that's me. Okay, that's one of the good scenarios. By the way, that project awarded best paper in America for IEEE, as it was a big contribution, a great contribution for me. Thank you. And I think that's my project with talking into projects. So I think that's the second talk will be more involved. So I'm involved in research project, okay? So partnership projects and so on. So these are my colleagues. That's Chaminda. Okay, so that's my detail. Any questions? I hope I wasn't boring because wasn't you were not interacting with me much. I know the information could be high level for you, but it's going to be very beneficial for you if you go for research. I'm sure you all will be looking into your dissertation, and I hope you go further with your PhD as well. Yeah. Oh, so that means you should understand now the concept of a research. How? Yeah, please do. Yeah, don't be shy. I remember when I used to be shy, not to ask, and then I thought, oh, I wish I asked a question. So, yes. Yeah. Excuse me, guys, please. Yeah. Okay, in terms of the bandwidth, so what with the example, maybe you wasn't there. My motivation of this research is to help the third world countries who don't have or rural area. Usually they have issues with the transmission of the bandwidth. Or let's make it easy. The network lagging, yeah. And plus, why did I use wireless? Because if we think of the wired, that's going to cost a lot to build infrastructure from the base. Okay, a plus yes, it's going to be good, but it's going to be very costly. So to reduce the cost, we use the wireless. So coming to your question, you said, am I going to be happy if I increase? Of course. So now, if your smartphone now, you are connected to the internet, and it's keep lagging, you get frustrated, right? It's really frustrating if I want to send an email and it's keep loading. So there's an issue in the bandwidth. So that means the transmission of the bandwidth is very slow here. So that's why it lags. So we need to increase it. How do we make these clients happy? It's to have a ITAP or gateway which will satisfy that node or satisfy you. But at the same time, we don't want to have many ITAPs, yeah? And that's going to cost the company or the provider, service provider. So what they do, they use the approaches that I explained earlier to reduce this placement of the ITAPs and to make the customer happy. Did I answer your question? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Outside the network. So like, you all know Wireshark? Yeah, Wireshark tool, okay. So we all can download it. It's an open source. And the idea of this is to track if there is monitor the traffic. Most of the companies but now it's more sophisticated application is being used. So it monitors, there's people who monitor the traffic. If there's any foreign foreign attack, let's say from different, because that depends on the IP address, MAC address. Okay, that IP address, why it's trying to connect into my network, and this is a foreign, so it will be blocked. Okay, so we use the software as well, okay, to block any foreign attack or foreign nodes will be interfering into the network. Yeah. I can give you an internship. They will all raise their hand. Okay. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, any organization will have architecture, right? So when I say architecture, here I'm talking about the infrastructure of the network, of the organization, or of any network. So architecture related, let's say, to the ITAP gateway, architecture related to the security in terms of firewall, in terms of other types of devices or structures being implied in the network or in the security. So this is the infrastructure, routers, modems, and so on. Yeah. 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 No, you can't change because with the network is an you can't have let's make it more direct. You can't have connection to internet if you don't have the gateway, right? So if anything missing from the architecture or structure of the network, that means it's not possible to have a good network. Yeah. Okay? All right, thank you. I went back to my seat.
So we'll